the four men who want to be Columbus mayor.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, the four candidates for Columbus mayor. Terry Boyd, former Columbus School Board president, Andrew Ginther, Columbus City Council president, James Ragland, community activist, and Zach Scott, Franklin County Sheriff.
The question was really on the return on investment. And if you really look at where we are right now, we've seen some areas that have seen some return, but there are other areas that really have not seen. You know, I'd ask voters to look outside your front window. And if outside your front window, your neighborhood looks a lot better than it has in the last 10 years, then maybe Andy's right. But I think there are plenty of neighborhoods around Central Ohio, around Columbus, that have not seen that area of return. I think we've got the third highest tax burden of any city, major city in the United States. If you don't believe me, just Google it. And, you know, I'm wondering if the Hilltop sees the return on its investment. I'm wondering if Linden receives that return on its investment.
Some City Hall.
We don't care who thinks this or not, as long as we know it's the truth. No, we need either this or that. This or that. If you're wrong, you're wrong, and if you're right, you're right. There'll be no skullduggery, no flim-flam.
Idolization.
I want to move away from downtown and get to education. In the recent days, in the past week or so, the campaign has taken a harsh turn. Zach Scott, you've bought billboards, you've sent out flyers blaming Andrew Ginther for the data rigging scandal in the Columbus City Schools. Andy Ginther, the ads refer to your time on the school board in which you were chair of the Oversight Committee. During the time that the first rumblings of something going on improper with the data at the schools surfaced, could you have done more? Should you have done more as chair of the Oversight Committee to investigate these claims?
Well, I'm really proud of my record. I responded immediately to these anonymous tips when they came into my office. We responded immediately. We had staff follow up with those folks. And the other important part here to remember is that I continued an investigation. When other district administrators wanted it shut down, and there are plenty of public records and documents out there supporting the fact that I told the internal auditor to carry on the investigation, and I'm the only former board member that worked with the Auditor of State's office to help untangle this mess that really put our city and our community in harm's way.
Now, the auditor's report says, though, that you told him or his investigators that these emails weren't specific enough, even though they used the terms cooking the books and the attendance data was suspicious. I mean, how does that jive with what you just said?
The audit went on for years, and it was ongoing until I left the Board of Education and joined Columbus City Council in 2007. So over those number of years, we had an internal audit staff following up and researching the allegations and determining things. What I'll remind folks is that the Auditor of State took tens of thousands of man-hours to uncover and untangle this mess. And our internal audit staff, I stand behind them and what we charged them to do, working with the State Department of Education, working with other outside support to try to get to the bottom of it.
Terry Boyd, you were on the school board at that time. That's right. You supported this so-called policy governance, which was kind of a hands-off approach. Let the administration do the dirty work, you set the policy. Could you have done more? Should you have done more to oversee the data collection and analysis of the school board?
Oh, there's no doubt we would have done more if we would have known. The internal auditor was not directed to bring that to the full board. Andy did not bring it to the full board. So the full board was not knowledgeable about that particular aspect of the internal auditor. If it would have landed on the school board's table, there's no doubt in my mind the school board would have, in fact, I know the school board would have taken more action. But when the new internal auditor came on board, again, he did not bring that information to the board.
Zach Scott, you've you're a sheriff, maybe you've been a detective. You get tips all the time. You hand tips off to your subordinates, to other officers. Can you see where this tip was handed off to somebody? How responsible should Andy Ginther or Terry Boyd be for getting a tip, giving it to somebody else, and then not those folks don't follow up on it?
Being on the school board is one thing. Being actually the chair of the audits committee, that's your job. It's about leadership. It's about, I have to dig into this thing and find out what in the world is going on. It's one thing to hand something off and rely upon other people. It's also to follow up and say, if this is going on, I need to know exactly where we are on this. Now, working as a detective for years, that's what you do. Working as a supervisor, same thing you do. So being on a school board is one thing. Actually that's your job to follow up and be in audits when you're the chair, to look over these types of situations. And for 8-year period, I would encourage everyone, read the auditor's report, the statement, or look at Paul Akers' interview with Mr. Ginther. Just follow up on it. It's very simple. It's just about leadership.
As far as this data scandal, I continue to ask for an apology from my colleagues here for the role that they played in that data scandal. Unfortunately, hundreds, if not thousands, of children were negatively impacted by the work that you guys did not do. And quite frankly, disproportionately, the majority of those students.
Real quick, because I want to get to the big picture. Terry, do you have any regrets that you didn't do more? And is an apology warranted?
Anything that came to the board, we worked on. If it didn't come to the board, how is the board to know and to work on it?
Any regrets? If you could do it over again, would you do it differently?
I feel very good about what I did as a member of the Board of Education and chairing and leading the Audit and Accountability Committee with private sector leaders who were part of that committee, senior risk officer at Huntington Banks, CPA from Nationwide Insurance, controller at Ohio State, who helped to chair and lead that committee. And based on the information we had, we launched an immediate investigation, and when it was to be shut down by the administration, we ordered it on. We had them work with the Ohio Department of Education. That investigation and that audit, the student accountability audit, was still on the internal auditor's work plan and in our minutes until I left the Board of Education. And I am the only former board member who worked with the Auditor State's Office to help uncover this and untangle this mess.
Magnify it all over the world to make you look like what you actually are.
Much of what I say might sound like it's stirring up trouble, but it's the truth. 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 It's the truth.
One day after the state auditor revealed a culture of manipulation in the Columbus City School District, MTV is uncovering new information from that 92 tape report.
We don't care who likes it or not, as long as we know it's the truth.
And the current city council president. Andrew Ginther sat on the District Audit and Accountability Committee when allegations started surfacing. Now there are questions about whether Ginther killed an earlier investigation.
I spoke to City Council President Andrew Ginther about the allegations. He says he's thankful for what the officers found. He says he never killed any internal district investigations.
Andrew Ginther is president of the Columbus City Council today, but now he's facing scrutiny for what happened back when he was a Columbus City school board member. State Auditor Dave Yost highlighted Ginther's role in the district's data scrubbing scandal. Yost says Ginther knew way back in 2004 about possible scrubbing. Yost's audit shows Ginther got an anonymous email that alleged, quote, cleansing of student records. It even named data guru Steve Tankovich.
I had our internal audit staff directed them to follow up to try to gather some more information, and they investigated it for several months.
Did you have any conversation at that point?
I did not.
The report says a year later, the same issue came up again. This time, internal auditor Harold Saunders was on the trail. Saunders brought the issue to Ginther and Ginther's Audit and Accountability Committee. The report says Ginther's committee then removed the issue from Saunders.
The implication is that you stopped that investigation.
No, Ginther says he simply did not see the data scrubbing allegation as the most important priority.
And at that same time, our internal audit function.
You can't say that you're not going to have an explosion and you leave the condition.
The district where money was missing, this based on.
And as long as those ingredients remain, then you're going to have the potential for explosion on your hands.
Why would you tell him that?
I'm not sure why, he feels that way, but I never, told
the internal auditor that the State Department of Education had approved of, the allegations or the tampering of data or manipulation that would take place.
No sellout.
The state auditor concluded that because there was no internal audit based on these allegations, 7 years went by before the issue was publicly discovered.
Real quick, I want to get to the big picture. Terry, do you have any regrets that you didn't do more? And is an apology warranted?
Anything that came to the board, we worked on. If it didn't come to the board, how is the board to know and to work on it?
Any regrets? If you could do it over again, would you do it differently?
I feel very good about what I did as a member of the Board of Education and leading the Audit and Accountability Committee with private sector leaders who were part of that committee, Senior Risk Officer at Huntington Banks, CPA from Nationwide Insurance, Controller at Ohio State, who helped to chair and lead that committee. And based on the information we had, we launched an immediate investigation, and when it was to be shut down by the administration, we ordered it on. We had them work with the Ohio Department of Education. That investigation and that audit, the student accountability audit, was still on the internal auditor's work plan and in our minutes until I left the Board of Education. And I am the only former board member who worked with the Auditor of State's office to help uncover this and untangle this mess.